Good evening from the News Radio, 1120 AM and 93.7 FM KPNW studios. I'm Bill Lundun. And this look at the news tonight brought to you by Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental. He's actually my dentist. I was in there yesterday, got my teeth cleaned, found out that my almost 12-year-old crown is going bad. That happens. And they're going to replace it. One thing you may not know about Dr. Michael Bratland, he only uses crowns that are made in the USA. Many times they're made in China. And let's just say that sometimes they come with, shall we say, dubious materials. So Dr. Michael Bratland uses only the best crowns. They are American made. And soon I'm going to be sporting one because my current crown, well, sucks. And by the way, they use lasers for teeth cleaning. And they can also use a laser treatment if you have receding gums. It does amazing things. So think about it. All right, so here's Oregon's screwed up news. First question, what the hell is going on with the Portland Public School District? An emboldened teachers union who essentially railroaded a school board into bankruptcy with a teacher strike is now escalating its rhetoric in support of Palestine. They've distributed an instructional handbook and teaching aids that's become a flashpoint in the debate over the Israel-Hamas war. And now they're backtracking. Okay, so the story itself has changed since Monday. Now, Monday, as I reported on the KPNW wake-up call, which I do every Monday through Friday morning, 6 a.m. to 9, that the Portland Association of Teachers last week co-published a handbook for, quote, asserting educators' rights to teach about and advocate for the liberation of Palestine and Palestinians. That handbook is titled Teaching and Organizing for Palestine Within Portland Public Schools, and it asserts that Portland Public Schools has censored and harassed teachers who advocate for Palestine on school grounds. And yes, that handbook is on the union's website homepage. It also had videos and other material that, well, many people rightly call anti-Semitic and indoctrination tools. The union's advocacy for Palestine dates back to at least last December. Now, the union displayed support for Palestine by advertising ceasefire marches and a Palestine 101 Palestinian panel discussion on its Facebook page. Bob Horenstein, Director of Community Relations at the Jewish Federation of Portland, says the union's actions follow a recent dispute at Grant High School. At Grant, a teacher of a freshman history course used the materials in a classroom, and students then posted anti-Israeli posters on a bulletin board. On 3 separate occasions, according to Horenstein, the district ordered the posters and protest signs removed from Grant property, which of course infuriated the teacher. Horenstein says the material the teachers union is distributing reads like propaganda. Now, this erupted, of course, and now the Portland's teachers union is backtracking, kind of, sort of. So allow me to explain. The president of the Portland Teachers Union for Portland Public Schools said now that she's pulled scores of pro-Palestinian lesson plans, videos, and books, and other so-called teaching resources from the union's website. There's a caveat that's coming up. This is after they were hammered with a tidal wave of heavy criticism that the guides were anti-Semitic and amounted to unacceptable political advocacy. The Portland Association of Teachers president, Angela Bonilla, claimed, well, she wasn't aware of the content and lessons plan and other materials posted on the front page of the union's website, and that the union's Social Justice and Community Outreach Committee comrade, posted to the union's website. Bonilla says, quote, "The concerns of them being one-sided is enough for me to say, we need to pause and review. At issue are lessons plans that outline the suffering, death, and destruction of Palestinians, especially since October 2nd or 7th of last year. But oddly enough, it doesn't mention that Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, killing well over 1,000 civilians and taking hundreds of hostages, many of which they tortured and actually videotaped killing. But Bonilla said because she and the union have vetted it, here's the caveat I mentioned, the union will keep one document on its website, a 32-page guide entitled Know Your Rights, Teaching and Organizing for Palestine within Portland Public Schools. Now, that guide encourages teachers to stand by what the union believes are their rights to show support for Palestinians, which, of course, that's political, and to use their words, educate children about their views, translating, indoctrinate kids. Now, here's the crazy part. During a pro-Palestinian advocacy meeting with teachers last week, organizers encouraged teachers to display Palestinian flags in their classrooms, wear T-shirts emblazoned with a pro-Palestinian message, which is highly offensive to Jewish communities. Essentially, that is from the river to the sea, which promotes Jewish genocide. And it tells teachers to lead lessons on Gaza that the critics say are utterly misleading and completely anti-Semitic. Jewish leaders in Portland have called the curriculum and union's push to support teachers' advocacy anti-Semitic and propaganda. One of the handouts at the meeting, yes, praised Hamas militants who died after recording videos that were posted to social media of themselves executing Israeli civilians. And the handout also praised the militants, saying, "Glory to our martyrs." Bonilla claims, "Oh, I didn't see that handout." Bob Horenstein, again with the Jewish Federation, said pleading ignorance isn't an acceptable answer, especially after his organization actually met with Bonilla back in early December to express concerns about signs on the picket lines during the teachers' strike that he said accused Israel of genocide and promoted anti-Israel and anti-Semitic rallies. It gets better, or worse. I don't know. So let's dovetail that with the Oregon Food Bank. It's a food bank. It does what food banks do, namely promote Palestine and say that Israel is on the brink of committing genocide and also advocate for, well, illegal drugs to stay on the streets. That's what all food banks do, right? Now, the Oregon Food Bank's president, Susanna Morgan, says their stance on an international conflict is a first for their organization. She says the situation in Gaza ties in with the organization's work of fighting hunger. In Portland? How? Now, it should be noted that it may be their first public statement on Gaza in an international incident, but this is not the food bank's first foray into politics. Let's go back to last Thanksgiving. The Oregon Food Bank tweeted on Thanksgiving, quote, "On this day and every day, we recommit ourselves to challenging and disrupting colonial narratives such as the myth of the so-called Thanksgiving feast. We encourage folks, spelled F-O-L-X, to use this day as a teachable moment for yourself." That's a food bank, the Oregon Food Bank, the food bank that Governor Tina Kotek used to work for. The Oregon Food Bank also lobbied for the passage of Ballot Measure 110, which all but legalized street drugs in Oregon. And then when downtown Portland became pretty much an open-air drug market, they lobbied against the legislature sort of recriminalizing street drugs. I guess it makes sense to keep drugs legal for a food bank because it ensures their employment. They also supported a Portland-wide capital gains tax. So, a food bank, political, in Oregon? Now, the Oregon Food Bank, with their latest foray into politics, supporting, of course, Palestine and being anti-Israel, they pissed off a number of Jewish organizations who sent them a nasty gram, saying, you know what, we're pulling our funding from you. So in April, specifically, the end of April, the food bank sent out a message condemning violence committed by the Israeli military against Palestinians. Once again, the president of the Oregon Food Bank, Susanna Morgan, says the situation ties in with their work of fighting hunger. The Jewish organization, which includes 5 synagogues and multiple nonprofits, said, fine, we're going to withhold any of our financial support for the Oregon Food Bank until you retract your statement. The organizers who signed the letter also took issues with the food bank's biased approach to what they called a complicated international issue and that they didn't place blame on Hamas. So, what did the food bank say? Oh, they doubled down, giving the Jewish community the chicken finger. Yeah. The food bank said people in Gaza are now facing a full-blown famine, and that their statement on April 30th accurately reflected the realities. The food bank also claimed that now they're touched with overwhelming support that they've received from other community groups, probably anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian groups. Jewish organizations say, we can't see how calling one party of a conflict thousands of miles away to commit it to a ceasefire while allowing the terrorist organization that broke the ceasefire to flourish on its borders helps eliminate hunger in Oregon. Well, maybe they'll respond. So, with the Portland Teachers Union going full-blown propaganda, dealing with Palestine and anti-Israel, and a lot of people being fed up with schools here in Oregon, here's something that hasn't been widely promoted that maybe you'd like to know about. There are currently 2 initiative petitions that would amend the state constitution you need to know about. They are Initiative Petition 5 and 6, also known as IP 5 and 6, or IP. Anyway, they both need at least 165,000 signatures by the end of June, and it would give families school choice. So here's how it breaks down. Initiative Petition 5 would amend the state constitution so a parent could select any K through 12 public school statewide for their child, even if their kid isn't enrolled in that district. So let's say your child's enrolled in the Corvallis School District because you live in Corvallis. You could say, I don't like this school district. I don't like this school. So you could, as long as there's room, enroll your kiddo into, say, an Albany, Oregon school or an Albany charter school. IP6 is a voucher system. It would amend the Oregon Constitution and allow state funds, aka your tax dollars, to go to private K through 12 or K through 12 religious, or even pay for homeschooling and other educational expenses when a parent declines to send their kid to a public school. So the measure would require the state to provide funds for K through 12 private schools, religious schools, and homeschooling, along with other education expenses when the parent declines, of course, the public school, and it would calculate basic school support funding amounts, which would have to be greater than $9,500, or the average amount per student provided to school districts. When requested, the state would have to deliver 80% of basic support amounts to an account administered by the nonprofit of a parent's choice for educational services. Now, if there were any money left over at the end of that K through 12 curriculum in a private, religious, or homeschool situation, the remaining money could be used to send your kid to an Oregon college or a vocational school. So, they still need a lot of signatures by the end of this month. And if you want to sign the petition, you can go to letthemlearnoregon.com. That's letthemlearnoregon.com. And also the Education Freedom Oregon group behind that website and the signature drive does need volunteers, and they do need donations to get across the finish line if they're going to do it by the end of the month. So if you want to help out, maybe you want to go out and collect signatures, maybe you want to make a monetary donation, you can go to letthemlearnoregon.com. Well, more Oregonians had their electricity or natural gas service cut off in April than in any time since the state has actually tracked disconnections. That, according to the head of the Oregon Citizens Utility Board during a presentation to a state Senate committee. Bob Jenks, executive director of the Citizens Utility Board, told the Senate Interim Committee on Energy and Enrollment that in April, 8,715 Oregon households had their power cut off because of non-payment of their bills to investor-owned utilities, both gas and electric. Jenks attributed the disconnections to much higher utility rates, exacerbated by inflation that's also pushed up other household costs. January's abnormally cold weather, which led to higher heating bills, was also a factor. Republican Senator Lynn Finley of Vail, a vice chair on that committee, and other Republicans differed with Jenks' solutions to the problem of rising rates. Now, the utility watchdog is advocating for caps on how much utilities can raise energy bills each year, changes for how for-profit private utility rates are approved, and other regulatory solutions. Republicans, and I think they've got legs here, advocated for less pressure to move away from much cheaper fossil fuels and focus on actually expanding rather than restricting energy supply, which is what's happening in Oregon. They have restricted the supply. And, by the way, needs for electricity are going up, in particular with data centers that are being built in the state that are gigantic energy hogs. Jenks says the bills are climbing by more than $200 a month when you combine the rate hikes and cold snaps, which is devastating to customers who still, have to buy things like, frivolous things like food. In 2 years, residential customers of Northwest Natural Gas have seen their rates go up 42.7%. If you're a Pacific Power Company resident and customer, your rates have gone up 35% in the last 2 years. Portland General Electric, their rates have gone up 43%. And right now, the Public Utility Commission is considering requests by Pacific Power to raise power yet another 21.6%. Natural Gas, Northwest Natural, wants an 18% increase. PGE, a moderate 7.2% increase. All right, well, there's a look at the insanity going on in Oregon for the week. Rick, time for you to roll out some reel. Thanks again to Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental for bringing you this little foray into Oregon insanity and, for working on my crown.